I'll start off perhaps by mentioning the 5 risks that prevent venture capital and commercial sources to come in to take over the project preparation work. The first one has to do with land acquisition. It's one of the most risky areas that many investors would like to be taken off the table by the time they come in, because it gets governments involved in allocating large parcels of land, and so that requires a lot of local knowledge and local connections, and that's where local developers become very good partners to venture and commercial sources of financing. The second risk is government relations, because even in the lifetime of the investment, there are always issues that come up, and that scares a lot of investors. So if you have a local partner who knows the local environment, that actually gives a huge risk reduction and therefore can attract a lot more outside investment. The third area is when the investment needs to be scaled across markets. If it's from one country to the other to get regional impact, or from one segment to another. And again, as you can see where I'm headed with this, local developers who are familiar again with the local markets become the best partners to go with in that environment. And then there is this question of data gaps and analysis. When you look at the PIDA, Strategic Infrastructure Initiative, you realize the biggest bottleneck that's preventing investment from flowing in for what countries have actually highlighted as strategic priorities is the data gaps. Just knowing what's the potential of this investment in the long run, who are the beneficiaries, what are the markets like, what are the risks, and what would be the opportunities. And I think that data and analysis gap is one of the other important ones. And that brings me to the question of skills, because the skill areas that are needed are in all 4 of these categories. And what we have realized in assessing how countries go about acquiring capabilities to make impact in these investment areas, we have 4 categories of skills that become very important. The first one is strategic skill at the government level, to be able to identify and segment out priorities that would then attract investment. That's one area that requires a lot of attention. Luckily, a number of countries have already made that jump, and I think at the moment, when you look at PIDA or other initiatives, countries are very able to pull out these strategic priorities. The second skill gap is on the action side, implementation, just getting it off the ground so that the right contracts can be written, that the right policy environment can be put in place. And here, we still have a huge way to go. When you look at the number of countries that can do that at a successful level, there are very few. And for details, you can look at the reports that we publish called the Africa Capacity Indicators Report, which actually gives you the array for 45 countries on these areas of achievement. The third area is being able to show that an investment will deliver results, because many of these big infrastructure investments are public-private space investments. And so it has to show value for the average citizen to secure the investment in the long run. And there are very few countries that are able to tell a story or to show through analytical work or historical record that this is so. And this is one of the big inhibitors to getting these investments off the ground. And then the last skill area has to do with dynamic emerging skills, because most infrastructure investments are highly uncertain, and you need certain skills during the lifetime of the project. And very few countries have already put in place the mechanisms to naturally grow spaces for talents to emerge and to be used in these areas. Now, all that being said, where do I see 3 opportunities that can bring in investments in the project preparation phase? The first one, on the venture capital side, it has to be in partnership with local developers. Because I think if you get the partnership right, then this is a tremendous opportunity for investment because of the risks that I mentioned earlier and how they can be handled. The second one is if you are able to get, for example, as has been done now on the question of energy, a task force on the government side that can push things through, whether it's policy bottlenecks, removing obstacles in terms of land and agreements, etc. If you get such a task force working at the national or regional level, as you have now for energy, I think you can get a lot of attraction for investment, as we have seen. The last one, I think, is innovation models, where you can bring in venture capital to start at a small scale and then scale it up then with the large-scale VC models. The example we have here is the African Diaspora Marketplace, which we have partnered with USAID and with Western Union Foundation to bring in small investors who have really brilliant ideas but at a small scale. And as soon as those are successful, you see no difficulty in bringing bigger investors to come in. So those are the few points that I wanted to put on the table. I think the glass is half full rather than half empty.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.